College Football 25 fans, today is the day we have been waiting for as we just got our deep dive for College Football 25's Dynasty mode. And today we're going through the complete deep dive on EA.com. That is a lengthy one, as you can see as I'm scrolling here. It is very in-depth, and we're going to go through it as much as we can without overdoing it here. But if you like what you see, support the channel, hit that thumbs up, comment below. Let's get into the deep dive for Dynasty for EA Sports College Football 25. So here we go. Let's get things started building your coach. They said your journey to the top of college football will start with you as a coach. They wanted this to be meaningful and allow you to experience the coaching journey that no other sport can provide. So what they made sure to do, they said they found that was both current and former coaches broadly fit into three primary categories. So each of these are, unique in their own way. Some are motivators, some are really great recruiters, and some are tacticians that out-scheme their opponents with X's and O's on the field, of course. So there are a number of coaches who are more of a hybrid between two categories. So there's some that are great with recruiting and a tactician with X's and O's. Others are really great tacticians and motivators. So there's no coach that's always the same. Sometimes you're good with multiple things. So they're trying to implement that into this year's game. So all of their research and discussion led us to build a coach experience centered around three goals. Just like the real world, no coach could be great at every single thing. This will have a rock, paper, scissors relationship between coach types with no dominant progression path, meaning if you're a tactician, if you're a recruiter, or if you're a motivator, you're not going to have a clear-cut advantage over any of the other pipelines you can go down. So that's a really good thing to hear. Also, coordinators and how you build your staff will matter in College Football 25. So let's start off with their deep dive on coach progression. Progressing your coaching staff will start with playing games. As you play, you'll complete coaching goals that will give you, of course, XP. You earn enough XP, you level up your coach to a maximum of level 50. And of course, you're rewarded coach points as well, which can be upgraded to your coach's abilities, which we'll get into that in just a little bit. So there are 4 coach XP goal categories that can be single game, weekly, season, or career goals. So starting off, we have the draft. Pro draft goals based on which round your player is drafted in. An example of this is player drafted in the first round could be a goal. Game example here, individual game goals that range from single play results like an interception or a rushing TD to full game results like beating your rival, being in the top 25 or beating a top 25 team, or even winning a national championship. You also have recruiting goals, determining your success with the recruiting trail. Recruiting goals can be specific to getting a singular prospect, from signing a 5-star prospect, or a full season like signing the best recruiting class in the entire country. And you also have stat goals, which are like being ranked in the top 10. Season stats are an example for it can be 4,000 yards team passing, or rank in the top 5 in offensive yards total, or career goals like win 5 national championships. So there are a number of times you completed a goal. Your progress will count toward a completion that can then be viewed in the Coach XP goal screen, which can be accessed via the Coach tab in Dynasty mode. They also have added 5 progression speed settings, so you can modify how fast coaches will progress in your Dynasty to your liking. So you can see in the screenshots here, you can see your coaching XP goals for Joel Burndown here at Kentucky. You can see all those different things for how long it took him to get those, how many times he completed these goals, and the experience it rewards. You can also see the examples of in-game goals that are being completed for getting a touchdown or a first down or passing yards. And then you can see post-game your weekly goals XP total that you got from that matchup. So you have all of those different ways to get XP to level up your coaches throughout your season and career. Now moving on, talking about coaching archetypes. So they talked about having coaching ability systems, and they wanted this to think of a traditional RPG classes where you have all party members have a specific archetype or role. Ultimately, in order for your team to be successful, all the players in your party must do their job and work together. And this also applies to college football. So their system's no different. All coaches will start with a base class or coaching archetype, which can be thought as your special ability in a traditional RPG video game. Just like real life coaches, the base archetypes fall into categories of recruiting, motivator, or scheme, or tactician, right? So for your base archetype, you can progress in multiple ways. You can become an expert in a single category, become an elite recruiter, or excel in a recruiting trail, or you can decide to become more of a hybrid coach who is strong in multiple areas. For example, you can have a talent developer who is great at both talent acquisition, aka recruiting, and player development, called motivation. The ultimate goal is to become a great program builder or a CEO atop of the college football world, of course. And achieving an elite archetype like a program builder or a CEO is a combination of both on-field success and the ability progression for your team and your program. There is no single formula to reach these statuses, so you'll be able to mix and match different ability combinations and progressing types, leading to strong customization for us as we play throughout our careers. In total, they say there's over 11 different archetypes, each with their own different focuses and perks, and together they form a rock paper scissors relationship where there's no dominant archetype. While there's still little doubt that talent acquisition is the most important thing we have in college football, focusing solely on recruiting could leave you vulnerable in other areas as well. Remember, no coach can be great at every single thing. Every decision you'll make on your coaching journey will matter, and once you purchase an ability, there is no going back, and you'll not be able to respec your coach at any time. So you're locked into your choices. You're wherever you're putting your talents, you can't do anything else about it. Once you make that choice and you lock it in, you're stuck with it for the long haul. Now, moving down, how do I upgrade my archetype, and what does it do? So they state here, each archetype has a set of prerequisites and objectives that must be completed. For example, an elite recruiter, you can spend 50 coaching points in a recruiter archetype and sign 2 top 5 recruiting classes. Once these goals have been completed and you've signed those 2 top 5 recruiting classes, the archetype becomes available for purchase with your coaching points that you've recruited over the years. When creating your coach, you'll be able to select a base archetype, as we've spoken about before. The other 2 base archetypes will still be available to purchase with coaching points as well when you meet any of the additional requirements. So purchasing an archetype with coaching points unlocks new sets of abilities and new opportunities in the coaching carousel, which they'll get into later in this deep dive. So for example, you'll have a tactician has a winner perk, which awards XP every time you win a game. So that's a one way you can get that type of perk through that archetype there. So your archetypes is automatically determined when you activate it. If you own the program builder or the CEO archetypes, there will always be your active archetype regardless of how many coaching points you spend in other archetypes out there. So if you do not own those archetypes, your active archetype is the archetype you have spent the most points in. Okay, that's a lot of using that word there, but basically wherever you're putting the most points in, that is going to be your current active archetype. Okay, that's the way this is focusing in. So wherever you're putting the most of your points, that's going to be your kind of your base, your default archetype system. Okay, and you can see this all here. You're looking at Michael Mueller. He's a CEO for Oregon right here. He's a motivator. All right, so you can see where he's putting his points right here, trying to become a master motivator. He has a big game bonus, so it gives him additional XP for winning in bowl games or national championship games. So you can see all these different abilities and how they work for that coach right there as a head coach. Now, they're saying, how do the abilities work? So within this game, there's going to be over 50 coaching abilities they state in game. Each ability has up to 4 tiers and can be purchased. There's a cost, of course, with each of these abilities. So you could have a scheme guru, program builder, CEO, has their abilities broken down for you. So you're going to be able to, for example, a scheme guru archetype will focus on your gameplay styles. And if you're a head coach who likes to play fast in your games, you can upgrade fast tempo offense, which will provide you with the following bonuses here, where you get a tier 1 battery pack, which means your offensive players fatigue slower in a hurry up offensive style. Caught napping is a tier 2, increased delay to defenders looking to the sideline at the snap, pre-snap. Tier 3, you have on their heels, team composure boost for first downs gained while running in a hurry up offense. And lastly, tier 4, tipped your hand, chance to see the defense's coverage shell in a hurry up offense as well. So these are all different things you will have as abilities for having that type of archetype system set up prior. Now they also state you could also make your team a well-oiled machine who doesn't work against themselves and is unfazed by rowdy home field advantages, by upgrading the discipline communication ability. This will provide you hater blockers. These are slight reduction in crowd noise impact on the road. Teflon, significant reduction of crowd noise impact on the road. Polished, offensive players will commit slightly fewer penalties. And clean sheet offense, offensive players will commit significantly fewer penalties. All those sound really powerful, to be honest with you guys, but that's very, very interesting. So you can see here, looking at this coach for, this is a coach for Stanford, a recruiter. You can see the abilities. He has always be cooking for the running back there, increases weekly recruiting hours for running backs, all sorts of other things as well for the recruiter, what he's able to do with his abilities out there. So let's focus in on head coach. Let's talk about coordinators, because yes, coordinators are an important part in this game, they state. So both coordinators and head coaches have the same set of abilities and archetypes available to them, leading to natural progression from a coordinator becoming a head coach, and increased importance on your staff management, where your coordinators either complement your strengths or will shore up your deficiencies as well. So remember, if you're really good at recruiting and being a good motivator, but maybe you don't have a great coach as a tactician for X's and O's, it's a great idea to hire those OCs and DCs around you that it can shore up your weaknesses and be those tacticians for you. Well, you could be great at the recruiting and motivation and development side. They can do the X's and O's tactician stuff, so that can help full out and round out your staff to help your team have longevity and have a great run, hopefully. So your coordinators will automatically progress through their archetypes, through their careers while they're under your staff. You will not be able to control which abilities your coordinators will purchase, nor will you be able to respect your coordinator's abilities. So this is going to add even more importance to how you progress through your coaching career and manage your staff in the coaching carousel in the off season. So coordinators, they're controlled by themselves. You don't get to decide where those points are going. They're their own person. They have their own career plans. They're going to put their points and their abilities where they want. So you kind of got to deal with it. So I think that's really, really smart. I'm really excited about how that's going to work when in terms of your staff, the coaching carousel, and seeing how coaches develop and change over the course of a 30-year dynasty we have. That's really exciting. As you see here, you see coaching abilities for, this is the Stanford coach again, the master motivator. He has the archetype perk Let's Grow, bigger XP gains whenever a player levels up. Now let's talk about that carousel. And let's talk about climbing the coaching ladder. This is actually not the carousel here. This is talking about signing that first contract. You sign, you start your new job, you have your contract, and just like real life, if you fail to meet goals or expectations for that contract, you could potentially lose your job. So they say school expectations are determined by the school's current prestige and program standing. So they can be 4 different types of expectations: win X amount of games, win a conference championship, make the college football playoff, or win the national championship. Those could be some of the expectations you could be expecting to fulfill depending on what program you're taking over. If you're taking over a team like my Hogs in Arkansas, they're probably just wanting to win games and be competitive in the conference. You're doing that, you're going to keep the job. If you're taking over Bama, like the new head coach is now there, you're expected to be winning the conference and heading to the college football playoffs and winning national championships. If he's not going to do that, he's probably not going to be at Bama very much longer. So depending on what type of program and situation you're taking over, you're going to have different expectations to fulfill to keep your job. So job security, of course, will fluctuate throughout the season based on your results. And job security is a function of your ability to meet your contract expectations. Every win and loss will count toward that expectation. So with that being said, not all wins and losses are created equal. Like I said, beating a high-ranked team will have a larger impact than beating one of the generic FCS school teams. Similarly, if you lose to a generic FCS team, you could probably be looking for a job pretty quick, because that's going to carry a lot of weight. So all coaches will have prestige grades from A+ to F. Coach prestige is reflective on your ability to meet contract expectations, and it's adjusted to the school and the role that you have. So for example, meeting expectations and winning 5 games at a small school will have a significantly smaller impact than if you win the SEC championship at a traditional Power 5 powerhouse school. And at the end of your contract, of course, the school will evaluate whether or not they will extend your contract based on your performance, or whether they'll let you go and go on to the next chapter of your career. But don't worry, automatic acceptance of contract extensions does not mean that you're unable. So if you do decide to automatically accept that contract, you will still be able to look at other jobs. You can leave for a new job via the coaching carousel. That at any point in your contract, regardless of your current contract status, you will auto accept contract extension to protect you from, of course, not having a job. But once you auto accept that contract, you can then go to the coaching carousel and see if there's a better job for you. So that's really, really exciting. There's going to be so much at play here in the coaching carousel. They've been looking at feedback. They said when viewing your contract, you can see current, past season, job security, contract expectations for the last 20 years. The season by season results show the team's record, conference champion, any bowl games they've won, and so forth. And when signing a contract, you'll have the opportunity to look at the last 20 years and see what kind of program you're taking over. Of course, your program's history will continue to update over time as you play. So you see here for Michael Mueller, head coach for Oregon, he has a 3-year contract there, and you see what he's trying to go into for Oregon. You know, you see since 2021, and they had that one down year in 2020 with the COVID year. But even 2019, 12-2, 10-4, 10-3, 12-2. He's taken over a program. They expect him to win 9 games. They expect him to be competitive in the conference. So that's a real big, big shoes to fulfill over there for them. So these are things you got to be looking at when you're taking over those jobs where you're expected to have good results early. Now, the coaching carousel, of course, will have a lot of things going on for it. So there's going to be a lot of chaos. They want to recreate the chaos of the college football carousel with the domino effect that it brings. So they made sure this will happen, of course, in your singular solo franchise that you're doing, or even in your online, the multi-user online 32-team franchise dynasties you can do out there. All of this will be out there. So how does it all work? How does the carousel work? They say the carousel kicks off during the conference championship week. During the week, all coaches' contracts are processed, and schools determine if they want to hire, fire, or extend coaches. If your school decides to fire or extend you, you'll receive an action item notifying you of the news. If you're a head coach, you'll also be able to fire your coordinators during that week as well. So you have some choice there as well. So once you return from that week and arrive in bowl season, the first round of jobs will go out. If you receive any job offers, you'll be notified in the View Job Offer tab. And if you did not receive offers, you'll receive a generic action titled the Coaching Carousel. Pressing the action item will take you to the carousel screen where you can see any of the offers that have been presented to you, as well as any open jobs that are around the country. So just because you didn't receive any offers in the first week of the carousel and that's going in the bowl season doesn't mean you won't receive options out there. Remember, the coaching carousel takes place over multiple weeks. The first week of bowl season is just the beginning. And as schools hire and poach coaches from other schools, their previous jobs will become available as an unexpected job opening, and the schools will look to hire a replacement that following week. So when viewing a job offer, you will see the school's new coach preferences and what happened to that previous coach as well. And you can see who also is the new top candidate for the job as well on that screen. You'll also be able to see the contract they're offering you, what the contract expectations are, and once you accept an offer, you'll be able to stay with your current school until after the national championship game, which is when all the coaching changes are processed and completed. This will allow you to take one last ride with the current team as a coach of any of the bowl games that they play in, even though you're accepting a job at a new school. And of course, there'll be a countdown in the top right corner of the Dynasty Hub informing you of how many weeks remain until your job change becomes official. If you accept a head coach position, you'll be able to manage your staff, hire coordinators at a new school for the rest of that carousel period. If you are fired or your contract expired and you did not accept a new job before the carousel ends, you will be automatically placed on a new team after the national championship game. So they say here, how do schools determine who they want to hire? So every school has their own persona and they have their own values of what they want. One thing here, you have this criteria of level. The higher a coach's level, the more powerful they are and the more abilities they have. So that's something that schools will look for. Scheme is also important. Certain schools, like the military academies, want you to run a specific style of offense or defense. So that's something to look at. You have archetypes. Schools have a preference on the type of coach they're looking to hire. Just like the real world, the Blue Bloods prefer an elite coach who's a program builder or a CEO. You have a pipeline. All coaches have a primary pipeline, which provides a boost in recruiting. This is meant to simulate an area of the country that have strong ties and relationships in recruiting. So schools prefer coaches who have primary pipelines in the same areas as their school's recruiting pipeline to help them in the recruiting hall. And then, of course, coach prestige. A coach's prestige is compared against other schools' teams' prestige, and a 5-star program is not going to hire a coach who is mid and only has a C- coach prestige. So all these things will fit together to get the perfect fit to see where you go. And of course, game theory and domino effect. It is important to keep in mind the domino effect you're looking at when it comes to the carousel. Just because a job isn't open today doesn't mean it won't be available in a few weeks. You can view all the current jobs in the all openings filter in the coaching carousel screen, and every option job or every open job will list its top candidates that they're targeting. Once the week is advanced, you'll see the candidates that have accepted jobs, what jobs are now open, and so forth, and the carousel will continue to move. You can also view all the coach movements across through the staff moves screen, where you're able to access this in the Dynasty Hub as well. So you can see here the coaching carousel screen, you're looking at Memphis here, shows their top candidates, the previous coach, shows what their primary archetype, their scheme, all those types of things right there. So you see the depth you're going in there for Memphis. You also see the same for here for Ole Miss. You can see what they have available for Ole Miss. And of course, here's the staff move screen. You can see all of the carousel moves that have taken place. Now, they mentioned managing your staff. You are able to get fired, and you're also able to fire people. So managing your staff will start during conference championship week. So during that week, you are able as a head coach to fire your coordinators. Careful though, they said this is the only week you can actually fire your coordinators. So after conference championship week, you are unable to replace your coordinator unless they are hired by another school. So your coordinators will not leave unless you fire them or unless they get hired by another school. Every coordinator has a standard 2-year contract. Once their contract expires, it will be automatically renewed for another 2 years. And of course, if you didn't like them, you can always fire them, and there's always a chance they could get picked up by another team during the coaching carousel period. Now, welcome to the team. Starting bowl week 1, you can hire new coordinators if you have an open position in your coordinator spots. You can also, when hiring coordinators, you'll be presented with a curated list of candidates who would probably fit your school's needs. The logic that is used is there to determine the list is similar to the AI schools logics used to determine the top candidates for other schools out there. So when looking for your candidates, you'll see, of course, their school they're at now, their archetype level, what schools are interested in them, and so forth. And then it's up to you, looking at their coaching tree, you can drill down, if they exactly fit your staff. You can look at everything on that coach and see, do they fit your staff? Then you can make them an offer, but it is not guaranteed they will accept your offer. You can only offer one coach per position each week, and once you've offered, they will appear in your staff management screen with an offer to tag. When you advance the week and re-enter the screen, you will find out whether they accepted it or rejected it. And if they did accept, they will join your program after the national championship game when all the coaching moves have gone completed. If they reject your offer, you'll have another opportunity to offer it to another coach. And if you have at least one coach available to hire, does not require you to compete with another school. So if at the end of the carousel you still have not fulfilled your positions, you will be automatically given a new coordinator that is on par with the caliber of your program. So they're never going to leave you high and dry without a DC or an OC, but certainly, as you see here, looking at Oregon, shows that they have a coach position available for DC. Right here you're seeing for Ball State hire staff, they see Danny White, the DC for Ball State. You can look at all of his stuff, you can look at his talent tree. And then over here for staff management, Danny White has been offered. It shows that he has an offer pending to join the Beavers at Oregon State. Now, building your program, and we're still a long way down, so we're going to try to speed up some of this and make this video not be an hour long today, ladies and gentlemen. But of course, building your program, they wanted to focus on 4 categories or 4 goals when building your program. That is, of course, humanize recruits by giving them the needs and unique needs and motivations that players have to discover by interacting with the recruit. Also, differentiate regions of the country by player caliber, quality, type to authenticity, capturing high school talent based on real historical data, and represent the different resources available to each school, ensuring the top schools can blanket the the country, while smaller schools will need to be more targeted with their approach to recruiting. And of course, make the transfer portal feel authentically unpredictable as it is in real life college football. So welcome to staged recruiting. With recruiting, this is built around three things: discovery, pitch, and close. Just like the real world of recruiting, there's a lot of processes, there's a lot of things that go on. So what you're going to be able to do here, you're going to be able to recruit with the discovery phase, where you're going to see the prospects that you want to target, seeing what they're good at, what they care most about. This is the stage where you're uncovering the initial information about the recruit as quickly as you can and see if they align with your program. Once the recruit announces their top 5 schools, then you make your pitch phase. This is where you're selling the recruit on your program and what you can offer to them. And this is where you see your school aligns with their motivations and how successful they can be. And then, of course, the final stage is to close. This is where you bring the recruit in for an official visit and attempt to leave a lasting impression on your program for them. If the visit goes well and you make huge gains with the recruit, they can have a verbal commitment following that visit. And ultimately, the recruit will make their final decision on NSD, or National Signing Day, where they will finally take that verbal commit and make it into a written commit, and they'll fill it out. So there's so much depth there now. We finally have verbal commits in college football. That is sick. I'm so happy to hear that. But now looking at this, my school. Again, there's 134 ways to play. And it's more than just anything. You have schools from D- to A+ in 14 different categories, which will comprise the My School grades. So here are the 14 areas you're graded on for each school: playing time, playing styles, championship contender, program tradition, campus lifestyle, stadium atmosphere, pro potential, brand exposure. This is where you're looking at NIL opportunities that could get your players to your school. So this is where the NIL steps in the recruiting phase. You also have academic prestige, of course, conference prestige, coach stability, which is important, athletic facilities, and of course, proximity to home. So each of those areas will have a grade from D or F or whatever it is to, or D+ to A+. And the higher the grades, the better off you are. So each grade has a unique set of criteria. For example, playing time is graded on a per player basis. The player's overall, or projected overall if they're a recruit, is compared to the team's roster and will project how many years it will take for that player you're recruiting to actually become a starter. Actions you take on the recruiting trail will impact that grade for both the recruits and players that are actually on your current roster. So even if a player is a starter today, signing new players and recruiting may negatively impact that player you already have on your roster starting today, because their playing time grade, and cause them to potentially enter the transfer portal, which means if you promise this recruit you're going to play, you're going to start, but your starter is already the starter, they could get mad about that promise to that recruit and potentially transfer out because of that promise, that those pitches you are making to the recruit. So you got to balance, is it worth going after these recruits and saying they're going to have that playing time versus losing people to the portal potentially? On the other hand, you have championship contenders that uses a combination of top 25 poll rankings, team prestige, and assessment of your current roster's quality, with the Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio, which looks at the percentage of your roster that is made up of 4- and 5-star players. And then finally, there's brand exposure, which of course is the brand of your school and potential NIL opportunities that a player could earn while at your school. While you don't see a player having a mustard named after him in the game or anything like that, recruits and transfers alike will assess their NIL earning potential and branding opportunities when considering where to go during recruiting or transfer portal opportunities. So you're looking here, you see the screenshot here for Stanford. They're showing you right here their prestige. For academic prestige, of course, is an A+. There are other top schools right there. You see Rice, Northwestern, California, UCLA, Duke, and so forth. So you can see that's important to maybe some recruits out there. So that's going to be able to levy them in. Whereas championship contender for them is low. It's a C-. And that could hurt them getting those really top recruits that want to win, where they'll be able to get those other recruits that are there for more of the academic standard and their, of course, the prestige of being a Stanford Cardinal and the academic side. So you got to balance that out. If Stanford's low on the championship contender, it could be a tough time to be able to build them back up to being a contender and getting those top recruits for that category. Also right here, each week there'll be information, there'll be a summary where you can quickly see the health of your program and any changes. This My School report will show you grades that are positively or negatively impacted by your actions that week prior. And even players who are at risk of transferring if it gets too low. So you see here for the Arizona State Sun Devils, you see their team prestige is a 3, their championship contenders is C+, their program traditions a B+, which is pretty solid. But you got to keep eyes on these weekly advanced summaries because players at risk, you see they have 4 players right there listed showing you their 2 halfbacks, a free safety, and a middle linebacker. Their risk of transfer is climbing. And I'm assuming once you get to the red, that's where there's some bad things could happen for those players that might be leaving as soon as that portal opens up. And of course, recruits, where do they come from? They say there's over 3,500 recruits will be generated from across the country every single season. And just like the real world, every class will be different. Some years there's a plethora of great quarterback talent. Other years there's fewer great talents and prospects. Similarly, the quantity and quality of prospects from each region of the country will vary. Certain regions will be more consistent in the caliber, quality, and type of recruits they produce. For example, that we saw in the video, Southern California is known for producing great quarterback talent, while East Texas is known to have some of the best receivers in the world. However, we didn't stop there. They wanted to go deeper and ensure authenticity of the high school talent. Yes, East Texas is known for producing great receivers, but more specifically, they're known for having big, physical receivers. And as a result, from East Texas schools, you're going to see bigger and more physical receivers coming out, whereas South Florida is going to produce incredibly fast, deep threats who have smaller size overall. So that actually is all in the game. You know, the DNA, the blood of where the country's been and the type of talent it produces through high school is in the game. And you're going to see that reflected in the 3,500 recruits coming out each and every single season of your dynasty. Now, what do they care about? Every single person, every single recruit's going to have 14 different motivations that they care about, from NIL opportunities to being close to home. Every recruit will have 3 motivations that they care about, and these are their ideal pitches. During discovery stage, your job as a recruiter is to find their ideal pitch as fast as you possibly can to determine whether or not they align with the program. Because if their ideal pitch does not align with your program, that's an uphill battle and your chances of getting that recruit is not very big. If one of their ideal pitches is a deal breaker, this is new. A deal breaker represents a motivation that a recruit is extremely passionate about and will not budge on. So if you do not satisfy a deal breaker for that recruit, they will lock you out and you are done. Deal breaker stays with a player forever. So once they're on your roster, or if they go to the portal, you see them again, you don't fulfill that deal breaker, you will not be able to get them at your school. So if you fail to uphold your side of a deal, if you make a promise to a player, there's a chance they will decide to enter the portal at the end of the year. So you got to be mindful of all these things when you're pitching players, because they will have that memory. It will follow them. And if you burn them on your roster with a deal that you can't fulfill, they're going to remember that. So you got to be mindful of those types of things. Of course, there are recruiting pipelines, just like real life college football. So you can read through here. They said they wanted, for example, Florida is now broken into 3 different pipelines. So you have North Florida, Central, and South Florida. Similarly, the Metro Atlanta is its own pipeline, whereas New York and New Jersey were combined into a single pipeline. There's a total of 50 pipelines in college football 25 as well in this year's game. Now, a school's pipeline level will never change, which ensures that schools who are historically strong recruiters is given a region will have an advantage. So for example, Florida has historically dominated recruiting Central Florida in areas like Lakeland, Tampa, Orlando. And similarly, you have LSU regularly reaches into East Texas and all along the Gulf Coast as well for their recruits. So those pipelines will stay as a constant with the recruiting for those schools, depending on where you're at. Now, looking here, we have initial interest in top schools. Every recruit will start with a list of schools they're interested in. And when you recruit generates their top school list, they evaluate every school's grades in the 14 areas, their ideal pitch, and their motivations as well. So you can see here, as you're going through, they'll go through their top 10, their top 8, and even to their top 5 and top 3 as they narrow down their decision. You can see here this Alex Casey for Oregon, their recruiting update after the weekends. You can see for each of their 11 recruits there, you can see for Casey, he is committed to the school. Interest is first. Robbie, right below him, has reached his top 3, and you can see where every recruit is at the end of each week in the recruiting update screen here, where you're able to see where your team's at compared to others. You can see if they've recruited to others or committed to other schools, if they're in their top 8, top 5, top 3, or have they committed to you. You can see all of this every single week as you update and go throughout your season. Now, looking right here at a screenshot, you can see this is the discovery phase of recruiting, where you're able to go through and see for each prospect list. You can go through, see the position. You can see if it's a position you need. If it is a need, it will be in red and it will say need. You can see where your interest level is with them, whether you're in the top 8, 5, 6, 7, wherever you may be, what state they're at. Are they a pipeline? Are they a high school? Are they JUCO? And how many offers they have as well, so far. So you can see all of that in the discovery phase. When you're looking at your team needs here, you can see, whether or not you need more quarterbacks, halfbacks, left guards, for example, here from Michigan State. So you got to make sure you're keeping tabs on this. Some schools where you're running a veer and shoot, you're going to need 10 wide receivers. If you're having a pro style offense, you may only need 6. So depending on the type of playbook you're running, what type of offense you're running, that will dictate your player needs and how many you'll need for each position out there. So that's something to keep in mind when you're taking over a school, what their style of offense and defense is. That will dictate your player needs as well. Of course, now looking at recruiting hours. With recruiting hours, you will have in the preseason, a 5-star program will have 1,000 hours compared to only 350 hours if you're a 1-star program. So depending on what type of program you're taking over, you're going to have more or less hours than any other out there. So that's where it really pays to be a really big program. You have more and more hours to recruit. So the time of the year also will impact your recruiting hours. During preseason and an off-season recruiting, you do not have to prepare for a game each and every single Saturday. So as a result, you're going to have a whole lot more time to recruit than you would if you were during the regular season. And in addition to the maximum recruiting hours you can spend every single week, each prospect has a maximum amount of hours that you could spend with them during a given week. So the default maximum is 50 hours, but this can be increased all the way to 70 hours with the always be recruiting ability for that position. So there are soft and hard caps at how many hours you're able to recruit for recruits every single week, with your total amount of hours you're able to use as well. The recruiting board you see here, here's a screenshot showing you the recruiting board. As you can see, the overview of where your school ranks compared. You can also see if they have received other offers. You can have the pitch where you see to your house is a soft sell. You can also soft sell. You have a prove yourself pitch, whereas another soft sell, and you can see the influence that has as well. So you can view all this in your recruiting tabs each and every week when you're going through for your recruits and your targets. Now looking at scouting. Scouting is something you can do when you're recruiting and you're offering your scholarships. You need to be deliberate and you need to make sure you're giving offers to the right people. So during preseason, you're able to scout and offer scholarships. So it's a great time to look at these players in high school. So you can look at this guy here. You can scout him for 10 points for Frank Mahoney here, who's an athlete, who's a possession, probably a receiver. So you can scout him to see what he has, and then you can go to the next screen and you see he's 60% scouted now. You can see his run block, his pass block power, pass block finesse, all of his different abilities. You can continue to scout him further, and then you get here where he's completely scouted. And you can see where he's at now, and you can see he's got a red arrow down, which means he's probably not a target we want to go after. So you can continue to pour in all of that to each and every single recruit out there to see if they align with what your team needs in the discovery phase in scouting. Now, each attribute has 4 states of scouting. You have unscouted, as we just saw. You see partially scouted, which is 25% coverage, mostly scouted, and then of course you have fully scouted, which you can see the full ratings and how good that prospect is actually going to be, and the exact attribute ratings are revealed. Now, every time you do scout a prospect, you will reveal a limited amount of information, and sometimes a player will fully scout an attribute. Other times it'll only maybe partially scouted. So there's all sorts of things you got to pay attention to there for recruiting, leading to your signing day decisions. Now, finding the ideal pitch. There's 5 recruiting actions that are available to you when recruiting. You can offer a scholarship, of course, which is just, you know this, offering a scholarship to the player you wish. You can also search social media, spend some time scrolling through the player's social media to learn a little bit more about them. So you can see, where they fit for you there. You can also DM the player, message them directly on social media to learn more information about them. You can contact friends and family to set up a meeting and talk about them. You can talk with the grandma and rave about your program, blah, blah, blah. And you can also send the house. This is where you, from the recruiting coordinator to every other coach on your staff, you can send as many resources as you want to get as much influence as you want. So you can send the house after them as well. So you can see here for this player, you have Quincy Ogletree. You have all your different actions. You can schedule visits, offer scholarship, all that kind of stuff. Each type of value, like sending the house, costs 50 points, whereas going to DMs the player, that's 10 points. So you can see that there for Ogletree. Another one right here for Ogletree down the line. You see we've worked up into his top 8, nearing the top 5. You can do all these various different things again. So each recruit you can go through, you can recruit them however which ways you wish. So you can do your pitches and all that kind of stuff as well. So after you're doing all that, you're able to do a soft sell pitch. This awards a moderate amount of influence when choosing the correct pitch. It also limits the downside and risk and the penalty of pitching something that they do not care about. And then you have a hard sell. This is the most influential pitch you can have. And if it's the correct pitch, it could be huge in locking that player in to commit verbally. Or if it's a wrong pitch at the hard sell, you could potentially lose that recruit to lock you out. So you got to be mindful about your soft sells and your hard sells, because you may want to make sure you make the right pitch for each recruit out here. So you see the example here for Alabama player right here. They're trying to get Taylor Masfalino. You can hard sell this player. The potential influence would be 5 green arrows up if it lands properly. Looking at the next screen over here, you see the pitch. They're doing workhorse. That is for pro potential, brand exposure, athletic facilities are the big areas they're looking at there. So if you hit right, you can have a huge sell and maybe lock that player into your top 3 or even close them as well. So when closing, the big part is scheduling and activities. So when trying to close on a player, you're trying to basically finalize to get them to verbally commit to you. So you're able to schedule out them to come visit your school. So for an example here, you see that Brian McCadley here, Bama, playing this FCS Southeast school in week 12. You could schedule to bring him to come to your school during that game. But of course, if you win, you see there's no benefit whatsoever if they come to that game really for you. Whereas if you lose, obviously you get 2 arrows down. Looking at the next screen, however, if you bring them to the Iron Bowl, if you have them come to see Auburn and Bama, you win that game, you get 2 arrows up. If you lose that game, of course, that's 4 arrows down. So you got to be mindful when you're doing this, you're scheduling your visits. You want to make sure you're doing it strategically. You can also see here, attend position meeting will give you a bonus. That's plus 3 arrows up for playing time. And then, of course, if you get everything right, there's your screen. You committed from Baltimore, Maryland, this strong safety, 4-star commit as well. Now let's move on. Let's talk about when players decide to leave your program. Of course, every player on your roster has deal breakers, and anytime a recruit has a deal breaker, will keep their deal breaker when they join your roster. So remember, deal breakers are promises you make to a player, and if you fail to uphold your end of a deal, there's a chance they'll leave your roster and go to the transfer portal. So a perfect example is when a coaching carousel, let's say a coach is fired or a coach leaves to a new job. This could immediately impact your team's prestige and potentially lead to players mass exodus and leaving to the transfer portal. In addition to players entering the portal, higher overall players may look to go pro or enter the draft as well if they've been at your school for 3 or more years. Players who are entering the pro draft will display the round they're projected to be drafted as well. And once a player has decided to leave your program, you will have the opportunity to persuade them to potentially stay. The chance to successfully persuade a player to stay is determined by their overall, your coaching prestige as well. Higher overall players will be harder to convince than they over the lower overall players will be. So you got to be mindful of all these things. You're going to have to be looking at these now. Depending on what type of coaching archetype you are, you may have easier opportunities to keep players on your roster. You see here for the Miami here, they have 3 players leaving early outside of graduation. You have one guy going to the draft for Martinez here, Damian Martinez. Persuasion chances medium. Then you have a right outside backer right here. He's a transfer. He's wanting to transfer because of playing style. That's a medium chance persuasion. And then you have a tight end sophomore. He's transferring because of playing time, but his persuasion chance is high. So you're going to have to be playing this kind of game here, thinking about your current roster, your roster coming in from the recruiting class, and also players you can get elsewhere as well. So, you know, that's just part of one of those things. Looking down, going to the transfer portal, of course. Off-season recruiting lasts 4 weeks in total, and the transfer portal will make the final decision at the end of the National Signing Day. And just like real life, this is a chaotic 4 weeks of the transfer portal, where it's unpredictable, it's rapid, and it's changing. Teams will constantly be making quick decisions, sometimes with very limited information. So every transfer is given a star rating based on their overall national, state, and position rankings as well, just like their high school prospects were. Since people change over time, transfers are assigned a new ideal pitch and motivations, and every player in the transfer portal has the same deal breaker that caused them to transfer originally. So you have to be mindful of these things when you're going through, you're pitching to all these people in the transfer portal. You see the tab here for Oklahoma. They have all these people in the transfer portal that fulfill their needs. So they're going out there targeting these people in the transfer portal from Ole Miss, from Boise to Wisconsin, Colorado, Purdue, and so forth, trying to see if they can get them to fit and come to their school, as you have a limited 4-week window to try to bring in some of these people from other schools around the country to fulfill the needs of your roster to help you build a championship team sooner rather than later, right? And once you get to, of course, National Signing Day, just like in real life, you have early signing day and you have national signing day. So early signing day takes place at the start of the bowl season after the regular season is completed, and then national signing day takes place 7 weeks after the national championship game. On signing day, there's players who are verbally committed to your school prior will be able to, of course, commit. Now, if they are still verbally committed, they will no longer be able to decommit. The majority of prospects will commit prior to early signing day, but some recruits may last late into the cycle. Those prospects, along with transfers, will ultimately sign their letter of intent on National Signing Day. Throughout recruiting, you can view your team's recruiting rankings in the top 20 in the top polls for the rankings for your top classes. Along with this, you can see your recruiting rankings for high school prospects, transfers, or combined rankings overall. Any recruits who are unsigned after National Sign Day will stick around and become walk-ons in the offseason. With that being said, the days of a player who is being actively recruited, not committing anywhere, and drifting off into the ether are over. No longer will you have to speculate and fantasize about what happened to that player. Did they fail to go to school because of grades and blah, blah, blah? Did they have a change of heart? Now, the team with the highest influence on signing day will get the player as long as they've offered a scholarship. So this was a huge quality of life feature, and it felt like this is a happy balance of what they're able to deliver for those types of players. So you see an example here, Kevin Bavaro for Oklahoma State. He's committed here, quarterback improviser from Amarillo, Texas. You also see here the top recruiting class. Texas was the number one, 33 total recruits, 7 5-stars, 17 4-stars, and so forth. And that's just for the overall class right there. So you can see their top recruits and all that kind of stuff, all the information. Then, of course, you go through your player changes, which is our position changes. We know that from prior games. You have your progression, where you can see how players have progressed through the years as well. Now, when talking about how players have changed the development, there are 4 developmental traits you have to be mindful of. You have normal, which these are normal players that will progress at a standard rate. You have impact. Impact players will progress at a faster rate with a higher upside. And then you have star. Star players are potential players you'll see on Sundays. These are players that have a great establishment and they are fast learners. They're going to progress really quickly. And then, of course, the best of the best, you have the elite players. These players will make a statement the moment they go on campus. It could be potential to be all-time greats for your team and your program. So when you're on your roster, you can press the Y or triangle button on your roster screen, and there you'll be able to see, unless you have strategy, archetype, mind reader ability, which gives you the chance to learn their developmental trait early, you'll have to just see that through the years as time goes on. Now, each player in game will have skill groups. So skill groups is a collection of related attributes. For example, running back can have trucking. For power skill group, you can have trucking, strength, stiff arm, toughness, jumping, and injury. Every skill group has a max of level 10. So for skill group caps, you can max out a player's max potential in a particular area. These will vary from their skill group, position, archetypes, and all the like. So you're looking here at Judkins for, of course, Ohio State. You see he is a power player, and you can see the core attributes that fit for that player. You can see his mental abilities, his physical abilities, all the like. So you can see this for each player out there in your program, and kind of where they're at and where their ratings are all at. So you can see this for every single player out there, from their physical abilities like shifty, sidestep, takeoff, 360, recoup, to their mental abilities like headstrong and fan favorite. They each have different things that do for them at every single game. Impact players are back in this year's game. Of course, you can see this with the star under their name on the circle. However, unlike the past, there is no limit on the number of impact players a team can have. Explosive offenses with playmakers everywhere might have 5 or 6 impact players on the board across the team. So you can see here for Georgia, you can see they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players right there on the screen. You can see of impact players on their offense. Whereas the Bama defense they're going up against only has got 2 impact players on the field at any given time. And then, of course, we knew about this already, managing wear and tear. We already went into that in a prior video, but you got to be mindful every single week about wear and tear. You're looking here at Donovan Edwards for Michigan. You can see his risk of injury is increased. It's moderate right now. He has wear and tear on his left shoulder, right leg, and left foot. Because of that, that will impact his attributes. His breaking tackle is down. His catching ability and blocking is down. His carrying and speed is down as well. So what that means is sometimes, players will get injuries throughout the year, sometimes major, sometimes minor, sometimes just little things like this. But you got to make sure you're, resting them, maybe taking them sit them maybe in some games when you can. If Michigan's just dominating a team, it may be in their best interest to sit Donovan Edwards for a quarter or two, to let his injuries heal and get that back to where he's healthy, coming towards the end of a season, of course. So, keep in mind of all these types of things. They wanted to deliver the most authentic thing to college football with their wear to tear, their recruiting, transfer portal, all the like. So they wanted to talk now about trying to immerse you in college football, the recruiting trail. Now let's talk about the new 12-team college football playoff. This is in the game, of course. During development, they had members of the team were able to have a mock selection committee session hosted by the college football playoff to help us understand how they will determine their rankings, so they can get that algorithm kind of set up in the game to be as authentic as possible. So while the media and coaches polls run through the entire season, you'll need to wait until November to be able to see your first peek at the college football 12-team bracket, of course. So you can see here top 25 rankings. You can see where every team's at right now heading into that time of the year. They created a unique logic for our college football playoff poll to determine how the rankings will look in formatting. So generating a believable opinion-based poll is no easy feat. So especially when you're projecting what happens in a versus, being able to go against real world results, all that kind of stuff. But they're trying to make it work as best they can. So each week this season, coaches poll, media poll, college football polls, along with the 12-team bracket, is updated based on the most recent results, and final rankings and brackets are revealed following the completion of the conference championship games. Once the rankings are set, now it's time to seed the bracket. And as many people reading this know, the 12-team format is a 5+7 model, meaning the 5 highest ranked conference champions will get their automatic bids, and the 7 remaining spots are filled based on order of final college football playoff rankings. The only way to get a first round bye is to be one of the 4 highest ranked conference champions. So an undefeated Notre Dame or any other independent out there as well as the winner of the Pac-12, cannot be seeded any higher than 5th because they don't win a conference championship. And they'll never be eligible to skip the first round of the college football playoff. So the 5th automatic qualifier that did not get a first round bye will be seeded based off where they rank in the final college football playoff poll. So you see here the top 25 rankings where everybody's at. And then you can see how it fills out to the top 12 and so forth. As you look at Texas, they're at number 4. Then you see here's a look at their college football, the 12-team playoff. You see your champions here. Oregon will take on Oregon's in the same side as Boston College, who won the ACC. Bama on the same side as Utah, who won the Big 12. And then you see the at-large bids after that: Clemson versus Notre Dame. You have USC versus Liberty, Texas versus Ohio State, and Georgia versus LSU, packing out the rest of your 12-team college football bracket. So one of the very exciting things about the new 12-team format, they say, is that the first round games will be played on campuses. Hosting one of those games will give you a home field advantage, so that's something to play in mind. Now, the playoff quarterfinals, semifinals, of course, will be known in the will be playing in the New Year 6 bowls, the Orange, Sugar, Rose, Fiesta, Cotton, and Peach locations as well, which will rotate annually, just like they will in real life. Now, the College Football National Championship has its own rotation of hosts as well, starting, of course, in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The championship will rotate through an additional 10 locations before looping back around, continuing on through your journey. So again, in addition to college football playoff, they have 34 bowl games, each using the real world bowl tie-ins. So the R+L Carrier New Orleans Bowl will annually feature teams from both the Sun Belt and Conference USA. The TransPerfect Music City Bowl will feature teams from both the SEC and Big Ten, and etc. So the bowls, the tie-ins, all of that are all here. Again, they have not slipped out any of these details. I'm very, very excited about this. And then let's start to wrap up this thing, meeting your new neighbor, talking about conference realignment. With everything going on, we know the conference realignment this year in 2024 is crazy. So every conference is set with their 2024 alignment. The Sun Belt is the last conference to feature divisions, and the scheduling logic has been set for both current seasons and as well as future rotations based on each conference's rule set. The SEC will accurately follow the 8-game with 1 protected opponent rotation, while the Big Ten will utilize their 9-game flex protect model, and so forth. So all of that's here. The updated conferences, the actual conference alignment, scheduling alignment, all of that is present in this year's game. Now you can be your own conference commissioner as well. If you prefer to reset the conferences back to their previous configuration, you can do that. You have the ability to customize conferences to your liking, to do whatever you want. You can reduce any conference to have as few as 4 members, and you can grow any conference to have as many as 20 schools in your custom conference. In addition to moving schools into different conferences, you can also have a school go independent for the ultimate in-schedule flexibility like Notre Dame has. Of course, remember, you'll never be able to have a first-round bye if you're an independent, though. You also have the ability to edit each conference's rules, determining whether or not they'll have divisions, division names, how many conference games they'll play annually, if the conference will have conference championships, where the location of that game may be. All of that is there for you. You can choose what you want to do. You'll also be able to make adjustments to conference championship membership and rules when starting a dynasty, and as well as each offseason, giving you total flexibility of changing things on the field and at the start of your dynasty, and as well as your dynasty's changing landscape throughout the season. So moving conferences does not mean you're stuck with the old conference jersey patch from the last years as well. Those will dynamically update based on your conference membership. So if you're going through your dynasty and, let's say Arkansas, my team, leaves and goes to the Big 12, okay? That means that their field logos and their jersey logos will change the SEC to the Big 12. That will dynamically change as you go. As you see a picture here of JMU, James Madison, with the ACC. Okay, that updates the ACC logo on their jersey and field dynamically so that can dynamically change as your conferences change throughout your seasons if you choose to. And then, of course, schedules. Unlike, you know, college football, there's so many big games that are played around. If it's the third Saturday in October, you know you're gonna have Tennessee playing Alabama. If it's Thanksgiving weekend, then the Iron Bowl big game, Florida State Florida game, and other host rivalry games will be going on as well. Dynasty mode scheduling system will make sure those special games get filled in the correct weeks before adding in the rest of the games in the conference schedule as well. So those big games that are staples will not be in weird dates. They're going to be locked in, and everything else will work around that. For non-conference games, they've also included many real-world games that are announced to lock in it. So you get the games that are in 2027 schedules. You get the 2028 Georgia Florida State game. You get games in 2029, 2030 with Notre Dame and Alabama. So they got all these games that are scheduled all the way out. So when you're going through your 30-year dynasty and you get to 2030, you're going to have that Notre Dame Alabama game on the schedule already. Kickoff games like the Dukes Mayo Classic and the Vegas Classic are also here as well in future years for your dynasty mode. So they've really went all the way through. They've also have week 0 in the game with kicking off the season on the Labor Day weekend. So week 0 is in the game this year. As you see here for Tulane, their schedule, you see where they get going. Starting with Northwestern, going through Purdue and so forth. You got all these different games looking at all of this stuff. Crowd themes are in the game, as you saw in the presentation video. You can set your schedule to do whatever you wish with it as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, the long short of it is, this is going to be an incredible game. You have Team Builder in Online Dynasty to burn a shirt, or not burn a shirt. So you can also... I'm assuming this is meaning, yes, so you'll have 4 games for red shirts to decide what you want to do. So you can redshirt a player, or you can redshirt a player after or before 4 games. Once the 5th game of the season happens, they're no longer eligible for red shirts. All of that's here. All of that is here, ladies and gentlemen. There's so much information. They have the Heisman Memorial Trophy awarded, of course, at the end of the year. It doesn't look like they have a full presentation, though, from what I'm seeing here. You have the All-Americans, all the trophies, records that can be broken, playing for pride, stickers on the helmet. You see Florida State there, stickers on the helmet, changing throughout the season. Ohio State, same thing. Wow. So much information, online and offline. Can go up to 30 seasons, 32 players in an online dynasty, 1 school per user, commissioners in charge of everything. You can keep track of everyone's status. Post-game speech, congratulations. Okay, so yeah, over 85 pages they said here. Lots of information, ladies and gentlemen. College Football 25 is nearing closer. We're in the month of release, and Dynasty Mode is shaping up to be maybe the best I've ever seen in a football game. That's high praise, but I think it's true. Leave your thoughts down below. Keep it tuned here for more. Stay safe. God bless.